Back in 2012, my friends and family would laugh at me when I said I'm building a personal brand online.
Do you think the company can succeed without an active and public founder?
I'm by far not the most famous person in the room. I'm by far not the most rich person in the room. I'm by far not the most successful person in the room. But because I stand out so much, I become the center of attention for the room.
Welcome to Gnome, where tech brand builders share their journeys and teach you how to build your own. My name is Stella Friaisse.
And I'm Anastasiia Kulibaba. A lot of founders build in private and hope that someday when they finish, everyone will notice them. But our guest does the opposite. He takes what's being built and then makes the industry speak about it.
Today we're interviewing Azeem Khan, co-founder of Miden, the A16Z-backed privacy blockchain, former co-founder of Morph, and Forbes contributor. Let's dive in. Hey Azeem, how are you?
I'm doing well. I don't like how France doesn't like air conditioning. Yeah.
It's true.
They really don't,
Especially
compared to the US or the UAE. Like I'm used to blasting air conditioners everywhere I go, and it's not the case here.
Yeah, sorry. It's like here people do have this belief that if you turn on AC, you're gonna get sick.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I had friends, even in the car, they don't like to turn on the AC at all.
When I'm in Ubers, even while I've been here in Ubers and Bolts,
Open the window.
So I've been opening the window because they don't turn the AC on.
Yeah, get some real air.
Am I crazy? Like, why are you leaving it be so warm in here?
Okay, so let's dive in.
Let's start with the story, how we met. So you joined Morph and we were supporting Morph with PR. It was late 2023. And since then, we were in touch, but I never met you in person. So yes, it's the first time when we meet. Your reputation, your personal brand is all about online for me. I see you everywhere, LinkedIn, podcasts, interviews, like different media appearances. So I wanted to ask you, like, how much online means for you, for your personal brand? And do you believe that the brands, the companies can be built solely online, or you still need to be in the room?
Everything is in person to me. And so you end up seeing the vestiges of it online, like you're saying. So much of what you've seen in terms of what I'm able to do online are almost highlight reels only of the amount of work that goes on outside of those like short clips that are able to be created because of an interview or a podcast appearance, a speaking engagement, something like that. But it requires truly caring too. It's not like the only time I message you would be because I need something, right?
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Relationship is very important. The first thing Anastasiia told me about you, she was like, we need to have Azeem on the podcast. He's the most visible founder. He's the founder you cannot miss. Like, I was asking, okay, tell me more about him. She's like, yeah, you cannot miss him. Like, okay. And same, I spoke with Gio, who's also a common friend of ours.
Yeah.
And he was also on the podcast, actually. And he said, yeah, as in, like, people have this reputation of you, this image of you as someone, like, who cannot really be missed. I think a lot of things we were discussing before, very intentional in the way you present yourself to the world. Have you always been comfortable being seen, or it's something that you had to learn?
So I'm honestly quite introverted. And part of this intentional image that's been created, I spent years in the entertainment industry, and I saw how an easy example would be like there's Aubrey Graham and then there's Drake. And they're not the same person. Sometimes they become the same person, but oftentimes, especially in the beginning, artists have to create a persona for themselves, and they have almost armor. And so I know hip hop the most, and they put on the jewelry, the diamond teeth, whatever it is. And for them, it's a character that they're able to create and a character they almost get a chance to play. And so I would say in many ways, I took a lot of my learnings from my time in the entertainment industry and thinking about the way that someone who's an unknown artist goes from that to building up a brand, creating an image, putting out content, and being able to really get behind that, the consistency, the intentionality. And so there's a lot to it. And so much of it has honestly come really from one-to-one, almost copying of what I've seen in the entertainment industry. It's just when you take something that you've learned in a space that's not the same one, they call it innovation. I don't call it innovative, to be honest. It's just I'm like, hey, this is something I saw work really well over here, and I don't see why it wouldn't work well here as well.
Right. So
Yeah.
you translated a lot of these
Yeah.
of these
Yeah. And
okay.
I've been fortunate to have experiences that can be translated. Most people don't have that, but I've had multiple life experiences, particularly the entertainment ones, where I almost treat myself like an artist who is like a mixtape rapper, and then you get like a series A, and it's almost like you're signed to a big label, but like now you have to put out an album, and like the continuous build up that comes from any artist that we initially become fans of, and it's like, there's a debut album coming, and how does the debut album do, and how do they do media, how do they brand themselves, what are the clothes they wear, and so a lot of it comes from that.
You started with the introvert part.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of founders, a lot of people that are building amazing products, they're not extrovert. It's hard for them to go and speak to people, to present themselves. So, what are the rules that you can give to founders that are, um,
Shy.
yeah, that are shy, and also it's complicated for them to go out there and start speaking to people? Like, do you suggest to like as a hip hop artist, like, do you suggest to see like or imagine how you should look like publicly, and they try
I
to?
think so. I think another good example that's more relatable for a lot more people is Kobe Bryant. So Kobe Bryant created the Mamba idea, and Mamba was his way, and there was like real thoughts behind picking a snake and why the Mamba, and it had to do with the way that it was able to shed its skin, and there was a lot of like actual intentionality between picking that. But for him, it was the same thing: was that he needed, after a bunch of drama that had happened off the court, to be able to create this new persona that he could go in and be this person. And so my easiest suggestion would honestly be to like go study what Kobe did. There's interviews where he talks about it. There's books that he said that he read, and he just saw it as not being untrue to himself, but just being able to like dial in a persona that he needed to have. And then it gives you freedom to dial up aspects of your personality without feeling like you have to be untrue to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to ask you about because you were talking about these. So who did you mention? Because I was thinking about Eminem the whole time about because
Oh, and
he's
Slim Shady.
like
Yes.
Slim Shady. Like,
Yes.
you mentioned another artist as well,
Uh,
but
Great, and Drake does it, right?
yeah,
Like,
you mentioned
like,
Drake as well.
yeah,
So some people might say, yeah, but I'm trying to be authentic.
yeah.
How does that clash with
I don't,
authenticity?
I haven't found it too. I think all of us have aspects of that. Like, at least for me, I can say, like, as a shy person, it's not that you're like, oh, I don't know how to say the things that I know to be true. It's just that I get nervous when I'm in front of other people. And so you have to like dial up your courage for it. I don't find that I'm being untrue to myself because I'm not faking aspects of myself. I'm just dialing up things that are normally very dialed down, and I do it temporarily. And
Right.
it's like, and then I go back to like, I don't do any of the parties.
I also wanted to speak about authenticity because now I realized what makes you different from other founders in Web3, and I felt it for a long time, especially starting with the sneakers series that you had on X. So you posted like a lot
Yes.
of sneakers, Jordans that you will select for different events. So in my head, and interesting that you mentioned this, like the founder should look this way, right? They have very like a lot of boundaries. They should do this and shouldn't do that. But when you speak about yourself and even like look at you, you have this like hat and like the hoodie. It's very different from what we see
Yeah.
at events where founders they want
Yeah.
to wear it usually.
Yep.
I think that combining these two is very unique as well because that's what make you different from others.
Yeah.
Did you have this like do you understand this? Is it like
So
can
if
you
I'm
feel it?
honest, what's nice for me is that, again, this goes back to like when I was a young child, we grew up in a very rough neighborhood, and my parents worked very hard, but they didn't have money for me to buy tons of sneakers. And so I started selling candy and Pokemon cards and basketball cards as a small child so that I could buy myself sneakers. Because normally it would be like, hey, I can get you one pair of shoes when the school year is starting, and then that's it. I was like, well, that's not enough for me. Or like, what if they get scuffed up? I want more shoes. And so now as an adult, it's like my mom still laughs about it, but like whenever I buy more shoes, she's always like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, no, this is technically for work, right?" And she's always
Have
just
an
like, "Sure."
excuse.
She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Sure, good excuse."
Yes.
But it is like a chance for me to be able to express more of like what I loved as a child. And you're right, it is absolutely not how founders dress. Even actually at Digital Asset Summit a few months ago, I was on stage with Amy Oldenburg. She's the head of digital assets at Morgan Stanley. And she was in a full suit. And I was in a pair of Yeezy sneakers. I think I was wearing the same hat. I had a Ralph Lauren sweater on with a teddy bear on it. And it was supposed to be the idea of like a founder and TradFi person panel kind of a thing, the fireside we were
Yep.
doing. And her and I were joking about how we were caricatures of like the other side. I had so many people message me after being like, just seeing the two of you on stage juxtaposed with each other was fascinating because you're a founder who's on stage with someone who's so serious in a suit at a multi-trillion-dollar company, and yet you're taken seriously the way that you dress still, that you're still able to maneuver in those rooms and meet with everybody and speak to everyone, and they take you seriously. They don't take you less seriously because you're dressed the way that you dress. And I said a big part of that is just because I'm just being me. Like, these are all the things, like when I was younger and we couldn't afford things, I really would have loved to been able to like buy more of these things. And now that I have adult money and I don't have kids at the moment, so I have more disposable income, I buy those things, and I don't see why, as long as I know what I'm doing and I do those things well, that I'm not able to dress how I want to dress and that I'm not able to just really be true to myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also relatable because, like, when I look at you, I know that I dress that way when I'm not at the conference.
Yeah.
So it means that maybe there will be more touching points where we can discuss the hoodie or the brand that you're wearing or whatever. But when
Yeah.
you see it without any like branding,
Mhm.
without any like science of the clothes, that it makes you like plain before you start like speaking and
It's
discussing
been
this.
so funny because there's so many rooms I've walked into where I'm by far not the most famous person in the room. I'm by far not the most rich person in the room. I'm by far not the most successful person in the room. But because I stand out so much, I become the center of attention for the room. But it's because I'm so comfortable as just like, well, this is just who I am. And if, me wanting to wear a hoodie is offensive to you, then it's okay that we don't work together. Like, that's fine. Like, I'm not upset about it. I won't try to change anyone's worldview. But what I found is that it's actually worked really in my favor. And it hasn't been anything other than just being myself.
Yeah. What you wear is communication too.
It is.
Yeah.
It totally is. Yeah.
Let's talk more about your fundraising experience. How much of your personal brand and storytelling capacities do you think have played in fundraising and the different projects that you've worked
So
with?
much. So much. I find that in general, the idea of why and how founders go to VCs is mistaken as a whole. I think founders go to VCs thinking they should convince VCs to give them money, but they don't understand the business that the VC is in and why it is that they should give you money and how you need to position yourself in a way that, like, technically speaking, the VC's job is to give founders money. It's not anything else. It's literally their job is to give money. But you have to understand the ways in which they want to give that money and how they're going to look good by giving you that money. And so I've written about this like extensively, but so much of it is first taking the time to understand, what does a VC do? Where do VCs get their money? Understanding that a VC in many ways is an unsexy job because they're the middleman for people with real money. Like, their job is to collect money from a bunch of endowments, high net worth individuals as LPs, and then they create a fund of money and then they use that to invest in projects. So their job is to be a middleman to the actual wealthy places so that they could create return on investment. And if you look at it through that lens, then your job is to convince a VC that you are more likely to make them look good and make money for their bosses, which are the LPs. And that alone changes everything, because so many, especially in our industry, right? You have these very technical folks who go and try to talk about the technical mastery of what they have built to a VC. And while the VC cares about the technical mastery in ways, really they're asking, well, how does this technical mastery turn into something that will make me look good to my bosses? And if you can start to reposition your story just from that perspective of, I am building something, and these are the reasons that I think that there's going to be value there. And if you give me money, then I'm going to make money. And if I make money, you make money for your bosses, which makes you look good. Here's all of the reasons that I think what I'm doing is going to make you money. And since I know it's your job to give me money, I should be thinking about why would this person want to give me money, and then hit those touch points. And so much of that comes down to being able to story tell what it is that you're building. Even so many entrepreneurs that I meet with, I sit down and I rearrange their story for them because I listen to them and I'm like, well, wait, no, actually, you should be thinking about it like this, or you should reposition that, or talk about this less, because most VCs aren't technical for the most part. And so they have people on the team who will do technical due diligence,
Yeah.
but it's like, what are you building? Why are you building it? How big is the market? How are you going to take parts of that market? How do you make money? Why are you the people to build this? What are you raising, and what are you raising it for? Like, it's like simple, and like, it's almost like the deck is just storytelling mechanism, right? It's like, you don't need a ton of content on there. You just need bullet points that really touch on like sequentially telling the story in exactly those steps. And then you get on the call and you explain to them. It's like, so many founders will write this like big block of text, and they get on a call or they sit in person and they like read these blocks of text. But that doesn't matter. It's just, again, like, why should I give you the money? And if you think about it through that lens, I have found it changes everything.
I think it's very similar to how we pitch journalists.
Totally.
Because what you mentioned, like you need to think about how they will write the story, not how your brand will look like or how you want to position your brand. Yes.
Yes.
And I also remember that post from X that you mentioned around the fundraising, that you had an amazing coverage for the story. And someone would tell that it's all about the funds that invested in you.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that you actually has a really strong team that did a great job pitching you. And also, there was a point about the paid PR, that you don't believe in paid PR. Can you
Yeah.
tell
So
us why?
being a journalist and like having been someone who for fun has been writing publicly now for 13 plus years for different publications, I understand the way to pitch a journalist, because I know what I want to hear when I get a pitch. And I want to see the research that you've done. I want to see the thought that you've put into it. I want to see how the idea of the story is something that would interest me because you've taken a look at things I've written about in the past. And so the way the pitch works is that. And so when we had our fundraising, I reached out and we were very intentional about which people at which places we reached out to. And so some publications are like, well, we don't cover anything that's under a 10 million raise.
Yeah,
Right?
it's a very common.
It's a very common thing. Now, I had taken the time over time to understand that. And so it's, if I want to contact so-and-so at this publication, I already know. I'm like, hey, I know that you don't cover this, but we raised 25. And so I think it could be interesting to have a conversation. And for each one of them, it was super intentional who was the person at each fund. And what I meant by paid PR is, I don't believe in paying for media. Like, I get, especially in our industry, it'll be like, hey, we can put you on this list. It'll be $5,000, 75. Oh, you want to get a podcast appearance? It'll be $7,500. And those things, I'm like, that's okay. I don't need to be part of that. For me, the organic stuff is what ends up actually making a difference anyway.
We understand that because we also don't believe in paid PR. We do organic PR, we do earned media. But just like the thing that I wanted to touch here, and you as the founder, maybe you can also explain this to other founders, because sometimes they're confusing things and they don't really understand why they need earned media, like why they...
Or why do you need media at all, by the way?
Yeah, so paid is very easy. You can pay for the article. You can be on
wherever you less effort.
I find all of the paid media is just like stroking your own ego, right? Like, there's been times where it's like, hey, you can be on the top 10 entrepreneur list for XYZ and it'll only cost this. Then I'm like, what needle does that move? Like, what is that? Am I supposed to be happy that I put myself on a list and like...
But wouldn't you say it still matters to be on this list, especially if you're pitching to VCs?
Not really, because I think at the end of the day, the people who really work in this end up knowing a lot of the stuff like this, where it's like everyone knows that certain things are pay to play. And so if you appear on the pay to play channels, it doesn't make you look any better. And so I've just not done them. And it's possible that there are places where maybe it would have benefited me or would benefit me to be willing to do these things. But I just take like a stance on it where, and maybe it's because I'm also a journalist and like
Yeah.
I love writing, that I've had people who reach out to me and like I've been offered high 5-figure sums to do articles, and I laugh at people. I'm like, I would ruin my reputation for this? Like,
Yeah.
are you crazy? Like, what's wrong with you? So when I get reached out to about it, I like almost am like offended. I'm like, no, like I can do earned media. Like that's fine. Like I'm happy to grind for it and work for it. And if it works, that's great. And if it doesn't work also, that's fine too. But I won't do this. And I think the media matters. Like, will it change everything overnight? No. But if you're consistent about being able to have media exposure in the right ways, in the right outlets over time, it just creates trust in your brand. And when you're a startup, trust in your brand is a super important thing to have.
Right. Which actually brings me to a next question about the discipline that it takes to be so consistent in the image that you want to show to the world.
Yeah.
You seem to make it look effortless. So, what is the day-to-day like for you?
Bless my wife, because honestly, like she's the only one who I would say really knows the degree to which and how much I really work. Because to everybody else, the goal is for it to look effortless.
Do you have any tips for founders or builders who are just struggling with keeping this consistency and discipline?
Biggest thing that I've done over the years is I've developed a lot of rituals. And so, uh, for instance, my mornings start with not looking at my phone for at least an hour after I wake up. And the reason for that is that I want to create a way for me to attack the day, not the day to attack me. And so I journal every morning. I pray every morning. I meditate most mornings. Sometimes I'm not as good on the meditation, but just like a quick 10-minute meditation that I'll do. I'm really big on sleeping well. I'm really big on exercise. I do my best to exercise, like lift heavy weights at least 4 times a week. If I'm on the road, then it's, doing calisthenics, doing yoga, bringing resistance bands
We
with
can do
me.
calisthenics together at the next
Mm,
event.
Sure, would love to. So it's been things like that where I found creating discipline, consistency, routine, and ritual in other parts of my life.
I want to understand from a narrative perspective, from the storytelling that you are mentioning, do you have the clear positioning for yourself and the brand? And is it important for every founder who will listen to the podcast and maybe after the podcast they can sit with themselves and just write down 3 or 5 things that they need to repeat to the audience all the time to be able to build a strong personal brand for themselves and the company they're building?
So I would say I have things that I believe strongly, but then the other big thing has been that I've had to be willing to hold them loosely as well, because as you change as a founder, as the industry changes, as things mature, you have to be willing to let things go, and you have to be willing to then adapt to what's coming. You need to constantly be paying attention to what's going on so that you are adaptable to that, right? It was even like, this is very random, but like, we mentioned my bio background before this. Like Darwin talked about survival of the fittest, but the fittest wasn't necessarily the strongest. The fittest was the most adaptable. And so to me, a big part of how I've done this is that you always have to have an understanding or a read on what's going on in the market. And while there are certain things about myself that stay constant, the things that I think need to be communicated change over time. And so I'm always looking for what are those things that I can see going on that authentically connect to what we're doing in a way that I can then sort of add to the repertoire of the things that I have to talk about.
Yeah, makes sense. But still, the foundation stays the same,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, for example, I remember we were doing a few media training sessions with the founders and the companies, and they love this, like, part of the document that we are preparing, the beliefs of the
Yeah.
company or the founders.
Yeah.
And even if the market is changing, you still need to have this foundation that
Yeah.
you will go
Yeah.
with, right?
That stuff I find is that that's like sort of the unshakable core that you need to be able to have, where it's the job of a founder to believe almost delusional optimism in like why they are doing what they're doing and why it matters.
You basically have over, I think, a decade of experience, even more than in communications.
Yeah.
What are some, and you've worked with also many artists across a lot of industry. You're talking about entertainment.
Yep. Gaming. Yep.
Yeah, and worked with big names as well. What are some of the mistakes that you see most commonly among founders and companies that are trying to build a name for themselves?
I think that people think it happens really quickly. You know, like one of my favorite quotes in life is, "It takes 10 years to be an overnight success." And, a lot of people will think, especially like early stage founders, and I'm sure you really encounter this, is like someone just raised their funding round and they're like, okay, cool, I want to be in the Wall Street Journal. And it's just like, it doesn't work like that. And maybe it's this like, social media instant gratification generation, is that you think that success comes immediately, and it just doesn't. It's like, there's still so many layers of success. Really look forward to the day I have a byline in the Financial Times, right? I'd love to write for the Financial Times one day. I have submitted multiple times to try to get an op-ed published in the Financial Times. It has been ignored every single time, but that's okay. That's just part of the process.
Right.
We're looking forward to it.
Trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process.
So we're gonna root for you.
We spoke about discipline and also that there are a lot of things are happening, and also that people want to become famous or they want to have good reputation overnight. You recently published a post on X that was retweeted by A16Z.
Yes.
It sounds like a big success, and I think that a lot of founders are dreaming about something like that. I want to understand behind the scenes of the process, either the personal relationship or it is the fact that you posted something about Clarity Act at the time that was very, very like
Very
right.
timely.
The timing.
It was a little bit of both, to be honest. So A16Z is one of our lead investors. We had 3 lead investors for our round. We had 3 co-leads, and A16Z was one of them. I have been very intentional about building relationships. The A16Z crypto team, I believe, I don't want to misstate it, but last I heard it was over 100 people. I have always just stayed in touch with everyone there. And I think that, they are a fund in particular that has communicated to me too, that they really like when teams take care of and use socials the right way. It was honestly just like a cool moment even for me, where I was like, oh, okay, very nice,
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's honestly all it was. It hasn't happened since. I'm looking forward to it happening again. I wanna be able to do more of that.
Yeah.
But I'd say also part of it is just, shout out to my team. A couple months ago, they got mad at me. They were like, Azeem, you're going out to be the face of the company. You're doing all these interviews and your camera and mic setup sucks. And they were like, what is this? And so I worked with them on figuring out like what were the things that I needed to buy. And we set all of that up. And then they've been very happy with that. And then funny enough, like that Clarity video is my social media lead, Daniel, lives in Lagos. He saw a tweet that I did about Clarity, and the tweet was doing well. It was just like a random tweet. And he messaged me and was like, hey, Azeem, I need you to get on camera and do this exact tweet just on camera really quickly. And so I didn't think anything of it. I was like, sure, Daniel. Like I went on QuickTime, recorded the video, sent it to him. He cut it up, he edited it. He did a vertical one that we put on Twitter and TikTok, and then he did the horizontal one that we put onto LinkedIn. And I had even honestly forgotten to put it on Twitter. I put it on LinkedIn and it was doing really well. I was like, this is strange. And he was like, Azeem, you didn't post it on Twitter yet. And I posted it on Twitter and I was like, oh, yeah, you're right, Daniel. Sorry about that. Posted it. And then a few hours later, A16Z like downloaded the video and posted it themselves. So like, yeah, so it was like, so that's why I say like big shout out to my team. And it goes back to like, Daniel's in his, I don't know, early to mid 20s. And he was just like, Azeem, you haven't done what you said you were going to do. You haven't, but like it was his idea. And then he did the editing along with our designer. And then they sent it back to me. And my job was to just post it. And I still had been bad about even just posting it. Right. And so it's why like it all ends up being a team effort. And I'm going to try to figure out how to replicate it now. you know?
Yes.
Right. You talked about using social media the right way.
Mm.
How do you choose the right platforms?
I find this is hard. So I've been doing all the social media stuff for a really long time. Like back in 2012, my friends and family would laugh at me when I said I'm building a personal brand online. Again, shout out to my wife back in 2020, maybe. She was just like, Azeem, I need you to start taking LinkedIn more seriously. And so I'd been posting a lot on LinkedIn over time. And so I'd been starting to build up an audience as a crypto person and knowing that most crypto people don't post on LinkedIn. And so I started being able to build a following as someone who is like a trustworthy source of information. Not that I get thousands of likes, but a lot of the right people end up liking my posts. And so that one has been something where more so at her behest, I've been more consistent on LinkedIn over a few years. And then Twitter has honestly just, been a platform I've been on since 2009. And I've always been a power user on Twitter. And so you understand trends and things. And so it's just been something I enjoy using, if I'm really honest, has been it. Twitter has been, going on 17 years of use at this point. And then LinkedIn more seriously, 6 years going on 7 years at this point. And so it goes back to what I was saying earlier is that it just takes a really long time. And most of the time people just give up. Like I'd say like one of the biggest things I've learned in life about success is you just have to survive. You just have to like keep going, be consistent, be okay with there being no immediate rewards, believe why you're doing it, adjust over time, but just survive.
Do you think the company can succeed without an active and public founder?
I do.
Mm.
I do. I think that there are a lot of companies who've been very successful. I mean, look at, Bridge was acquired by Stripe for over $1 billion, and neither of the founders was very active on socials. We've seen a bunch of really large acquisitions by founders who are not nearly as out there at all. And so I think that it goes back to just there are different ways to run companies. The one that works for me is that I understand that I personally have a competitive advantage being someone who goes out and does all the speaking engagements and meets with everyone and does the BD this way and stuff like that. But I've definitely seen a lot of companies who are extremely successful without having a founder who does what I do. Does it help increase your chances for exposure and success? I do believe so, but I don't think it's an entire necessity.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure having you. And before we wrap up, we have a little tradition,
Sure.
which is flash questions.
Okay.
So basically, concept is super simple. I'm going to ask you this or that format type of questions,
Okay.
and you have to pick one option. So
Super quickly? Okay.
yeah, super good, as fast as possible, and think about it.
Okay.
No, both. No, it depends. Just
Okay.
what it takes. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. Conference stage or podcast mic?
Conference stage.
Privacy or transparency?
Privacy.
Build quietly or build loud?
Build loud.
Post first, edit later, or edit first, post later?
Edit first, post later.
A16Z repost or 10,000 organic likes?
10,000 organic likes.
Okay, interesting. And finally, Jordans or Air Force?
Ooh, you got it. Air Force because they're my first love.
Thank you so much, Azeem.
Thank you, Azeem, for coming.
See you around. This was Gnome. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.